Renny Show is brought to you by Johnston Group, Vittorio Rossi, Trans-Canada Brewing, Lou Ferlin, Cambrian Credit Union, and Homefield.
Hello, everybody. I'm Sean Reynolds from Sportsnet, about to be joined by Ken Weeb from Sportsnet. Together, we are Kenny and Renny, and this is the Kenny and Renny post-game show after, I got to say, a disappointing loss. I'm sure many of you feel against the San Jose Sharks, a team that did not really look to me like they were much in the same rank as the Winnipeg Jets tonight, and yet somehow managed to find a way to come out with a victory here. It's almost like they rope-a-doped the Winnipeg Jets. Where have we heard that one before? I guess turnaround is fair play, and I don't think maybe you can be crazy upset if you're a Jets fan in a year where you have stolen so many games in manners just like what we saw from the San Jose Sharks here. When it comes back to bite you in the other direction, I guess that's part of the league, right? Any team can win on any night, even if they don't necessarily deserve to win. Maybe it's one of the nights where you say, maybe be happy that you walked away with a point, but moral victories at this stage of the season, A, they're hard to come by, and B, do you even want to be leaning into that? I will say this at this stage, the Winnipeg Jets get a point in that game. They pop from 8th all the way up to 3rd as the idle Colorado Avalanche are now a point behind them, although they have 3 games at hand. So let's not get too excited about that situation there. But it works, and something else to be excited about. Looks like the Nashville Predators, who have games in hand on the Winnipeg Jets, are taking a bit of a beating at the hands of the Vancouver Canucks tonight. So that's not a team that looks like it's tonight's going to help them. The Calgary Flames do look like they're going to win, so they close a 1-point gap on the Winnipeg Jets, still 6 points up on them, even games between those two teams. I've said this before. I have no doubt in my mind the Winnipeg Jets are going to make the playoffs. I'm not nervous about this. I'm guessing some of you probably are. That's the way it's going to be. Just quickly for me, because the big wigs are coming into the show here tonight. Sammy the Scarf's going to be jumping in, and John Bartlett's already waiting in the green room, because Johnny's one of those guys. He's got the grand piano in the background. He's got his suite right atop the Delta. You know, they always give him the nicest room in the entire city of Winnipeg. So we're going to bring them in here quickly. I'm just going to say this. Winnipeg Jets lose this game, in my mind, based on 3 to 4 factors. A, the first factor is James Reimer. Great game by a guy who comes into not his hometown, but his home province, and absolutely goalies the Winnipeg Jets. If you're thinking that this is a play that's played out before, it hasn't. He hadn't won a game here in Winnipeg since 2013. So it looked like he had enough and wanted to put that streak to an end. B, the Jets' inability to score on the power play. We know the power play has been a problem for a long, long time here for the Winnipeg Jets. Games like this is where it catches up to them. See their inability to win faceoffs. I mean, I get it. I know the analytics crowd says that faceoffs don't matter, but situationally in games like this, it is clear and obvious that they do. The Winnipeg Jets needed to get some faceoff wins to try and get that puck out of the zone. Did not happen, and that's why this game is tied and gone to overtime, even giving the San Jose Sharks a chance to win that game. And D, we've talked a lot on this program about David Rittich and what he's done for this team. This is one of those nights where, I mean, hey, if your backup goaltender gives you one bad goal on the night, is that enough for you to point the finger at him? Well, on a night where you can only really muster the offense that the Jets were able to on this night, maybe you can. Definitely that first goal was not a goal not that it shouldn't have gone in, but this is one of those ones that's entirely on the goaltender. He struggled with the puck all night. I thought the Jets did a phenomenal job keeping the puck away from him for the majority of the night, and keeping the San Jose Sharks away from him, given that he was bumbling the puck so often. The game-tying goal with 10 seconds left, that's not on him. A breakaway in overtime, that's basically a 50-50 play. I'm not comfortable overly throwing this at the feet of David Rittich. However, this game is probably a 2-0 game if he doesn't allow that first goal. Anyways, that's my take on this. I'm going to bring in John Bartlett right now to get started on this. I want to get his take on this because John is a guy I love having conversations with when it comes down to his take on the Winnipeg Jets. We've been talking about it Hey, we talked about it in New York when you would have saw John do the Rangers game and do the Wednesday night game against the New York Islanders. John was there to call the rope-a-dope the last time the Jets rope-a-dope the New York Rangers. We have great conversations with him. He's plugged in. Being plugged in as you are, and let's bring Sammy in while we're here as well, because Sammy's ready to pop in. Sammy the Scarf is going to get everybody excited. Look at that. He's got the lampies out already. You know he's in Winnipeg. Oh, they both got the lampies. Hey, I was saying it, Sammy, this is where the big boys come to play on KNR, and it's where they come to have fun, and there's nothing more fun than doing this with a handful of lampy. I got to say, I should be doing it more often. I'm going to start with Johnny. I'm going to get to you, Sam. John, what's the difference in that game for you tonight?
Well, I just want to see, is Sammy, the heat working in your room or what there? You a little chilly or come over? I got the fire going on here.
Yeah, I was going to say I don't have the executive suite with the wine fridge and the fireplace. So.
Yeah.
Got a good blanket for the balcony.
I'll play a little something on the grand piano for you after, yeah. Okay, what are we talking about? What are we talking about?
Where'd that game go wrong? I take a look at that game, Johnny, and I think that it's not a game the Jets should have lost. How'd they lose it?
Two things. Face-offs. Didn't win the face-off battle tonight. San Jose owned the Jets in the face-off circle. Puck possession, huge off of that. And 0 for 6 on a power play. You got to capitalize on that. James Reimer was great tonight to get a win back in his home province for the first time since 2013. And he played a great game for the Sharks tonight. But, they lost the key draws. And when you 0 for 6 on the power play, you got to at least bury one of those. So 10 seconds away from having 2 points. At least they get the one still with the overtime game.
Sammy, what'd you take away from that game?
Well, I just finished watching the Calgary game, and Calgary kind of did the reverse. Toffoli gets a breakaway with 6 seconds left and buries it after they gave up a 3-2 lead, but they ended up winning 5-4 in regulation. So I guess you got to think, if you're Winnipeg in the back of your head, you got to think a little bit about what Calgary's doing. I think Nashville is down, last I checked, 2-1. I know Bartz will double check or have his double check.
It was 4-0 last I looked.
Oh, really?
In that game, yeah. Wasn't that what I was looking at? Am I looking at the right thing here?
Well, I know that was a score.
Oh no, it's only 2-1. You're right. It's only
2-1. Yeah.
That was the Ottawa game. I'm mixing that up with Chicago or Ottawa. Yeah. Okay.
Maybe
yes, 2-1.
Too many of these for you, Renny.
Yeah.
If I have my way, it will be. You bet.
No, I mean, listen, the inability to bury a number of chances. So you can look at the flip side of Reimer having an excellent night, which he did. You think about Niederreiter hitting the post. You think about the one glove save. You think about him lifting the pad, extending his left pad on a couple of occasions. I mean, Reimer was just that good. But, man, a lot of good chances. I think through 2 periods, we had 19 slot shots for Winnipeg, and Reimer had stopped 18 of them. So by the time we got to the end of the game, Reimer would have faced a season high, more than the 21 he had coming into the game. It's fascinating stuff. I look at David Riddick, and early on the puck touches were difficult for him, and the one goal bounces off him, and Lawrence is there, and he gets 3 whacks at it. So I think at this time of year, in tight games, you're going to see another one Wednesday, you can ill afford to make those kind of mistakes. And I was saying to Bartz at the end of the game, for some stupid reason, I was looking at Riddick's numbers. I think he started 12 games last year for Nashville. 5 of them went into overtime. And I think in his 16 starts now this year, another 5 of them have gone into overtime. For whatever reason, when he plays, it just seems to be a tight game. And no doubt that Rick Bowness had to get him in there because of the schedule that's upcoming. He's going to have to play again here in one of these 3 or 4, likely the back-to-back, when the team gets to Florida. But I thought that was almost an imperative 2 points on the line for Winnipeg in this game. And you thought maybe the emotional high coming off the Edmonton win might be able to kind of force and push it through. But, on essentially a minute and 31, it goes from a 2-point win to a 1-point overtime loss.
For me, I take a look at this, and maybe I'm being...
Yeah, no, I was just going to say the 2 big saves by Reimer too, right? The shorthanded glove save he makes, and the one where he kicks the leg up,
Kicks the pad,
stretching back. Those are the two highlight reel stops that he makes that ends up being the big difference.
So I take a look at this game, and again, maybe I'm crazy for not being, ringing the fire alarm. I'm not worried about the Winnipeg Jets falling out of the playoffs here. I take a look at the Nashville Predators. Yeah, they've got some games in hand, but if you take a look at that lineup, I feel like eventually the fact that they sold is going to catch up with them somewhere along the line. They're playing above what I think they're capable of playing, and eventually teams like that seem to realize it. The Calgary Flames, I guess the thing that's dangerous about them is at some point they could figure it out. They've got all the pieces there to figure it out and do something with it, similar to the Winnipeg Jets. They just can't seem to. So I'm not overly worried about it, but I think what the thing that concerns me most about something like this is after what the Jets earned themselves against the Edmonton Oilers, you just walk out of this game thinking like they had a chance to pick up some momentum before they go into a really tough stretch. Their next game, Wednesday night. Sammy, you got to head back, but John, you're going to be sticking around to call their game against the Minnesota Wild on Wednesday. After that, they do that Florida trip. Now, maybe that's a good thing. Florida hasn't looked the best this year. Right now, maybe you're catching a team like Tampa right at the right time because they seem to be struggling. This did look like a bit of a murderer's row stretch for a while there. It could still work out like that. But to me, I just take a look at this and I think about this team and its inability to kind of lock in on some momentum. And John, I guess I want to get from you your take on what you saw from this team, this game compared to the last game. Like, did it feel to you like they were leaving something on the table?
Yeah, well, first thing to your point of going on the road after the game this Wednesday coming up against Minnesota, the Jets have 8 of their next 10 on the road. So is that a good thing or bad thing at this time? You're right. I don't know. When you come off a game that's so emotional like it was Saturday night against the Oilers, even the back-to-back, right, with the Oilers where you have the home like that. So they're fired up. And then you have this kind of a game that can sometimes be a trap game when you have a team like San Jose coming in and where they are in the standings, where they're placed. So I thought for the most part, the Jets had some good energy going in the game and had the shots going and a little bit of momentum, but just, you needed that little bit of an extra push, I think, to really put it away. And as Sammy was kind of saying, this is a game you really want to see the Jets come out and take it to the Sharks and build that momentum. And as the game goes on, and as we talked about, Reimer was good and stuff, but still coming off that game against the Oilers, you really wanted to see, I think, more out of the Jets. I think Jets fans tonight probably would have liked to have seen a 4-5-1 win, something like that really kind of dominated the game. But when you're sitting with the Sharks 1-1 and you're sitting there going, all right, where's that same emotion, that you had on the Saturday night? Very difficult to do. Minnesota's going to be a very difficult game Wednesday with the way they play to try and bring that same kind of momentum. So, that it's a time to play in, to have the emotion get up. But as Rick Bowness was saying this morning, 18 games to go. You went from 3rd to 8th in the span of one day after a win. Things are going to be tense here down the stretch for positioning and where you're going to land. So you hope to see a little more not enthusiasm. That's not the right word to say, but you want to see a little more, I think, dominance of the game tonight is probably what Jets fans would really have wanted to see against the Sharks.
Well, that's just it. I think in games like this, the one thing that we've said time and time again, because the Jets have been a team that's been accused of kind of playing down to their opposition on a number of nights. I'm not sure what to take away from this game. I don't know if we saw that here tonight. I mean, they came out, they started cranking up the shot clock right off the bat. They didn't really stop until the end of the game. Like you'd said, there was some huge saves by Reimer. Never mind, add to that, Blake Wheeler missing the wide open net. And the one that really blows me away is Adam Lowry getting the puck right afterwards and finding a way to miss that net. It's almost like he got scared too far to the right because Wheeler had gone too far to the left in that situation. But there were so many key moments, and I don't know if you take away from this that this is a team that came out tonight and then squeezed the stick once it found itself in a tight game, because it hasn't really for a while. Last game against the Oilers was a bit of a goal scoring fest, right? And sometimes the Jets can feel comfortable in an environment like that because they can pour the puck into the back of the net. The game before that, the Oilers were kind of flying. The Jets went and got 3 goals right towards the end of the game. Again, they feel it when there's that little bit of a rhythm. The game before that is a 6-5 win for the LA Kings. I don't know about this, Sammy, and I want to run this kind of theory behind you, but like, is this a situation where the Jets, who've been struggling to keep the puck out of their own net, get into a low-scoring game like this, and in the process of trying to grind things out and play better defensively, kind of take themselves out of rhythm offensively, and then maybe that explains some of the misses that we see here tonight?
I mean, maybe, but here's the thing: like going down the stretch, you're gonna Minnesota Wednesday night. It's going to be tough to generate shots and generate chances. They're going to have to play a tight game. And then you're going to go to Carolina a couple of nights after that, and it's the same sort of thing. In terms of shot suppression, they're the best team in the league, Carolina. So if you think you're going to go out and get 35 or 40 chances and get all the slot shots, that's just not going to happen in these next couple of games. So it's going to have to be ugly. It's going to have to be dirty. And sometimes it's the lucky bounce where the one that goes off the post actually goes in the net, or the guy who kicks up his leg in goal, the puck elevates over his foot. It's going to be that type of thing, or a number of those types of things, I think, to kind of get him over the hump. But in terms of what I saw from the Jets tonight, despite getting close to 40 shots, I still think a little bit out of sync in terms of some of the passes and skates are just behind guys. And again, we had 2 new players to the lineup. It takes a little while to get that chemistry. And 2 guys, Niederreiter's playing a lot. I think Vladdy played around 10 minutes tonight. But Niederreiter's going to be a guy who's going to, play 14, 15 a night. So it does take some time. And I've noticed that with all the teams that have added new players. I look at the Toronto Maple Leafs, the team that I watch because they live in the East. And with all the new additions they've made, it's taken a lot of time. And you're seeing passes or systems, things that either teams, that the new players aren't quite used to. And the players that were existing might think of players here and the new player might be over there and that sort of thing. So I saw a lot of misses tonight, but at the end of the day, generated a lot of chances, couldn't bury them, didn't do anything on the power play, but that's to be expected against the team that's been up near the best penalty kill in the league all season long. They were leading the league for a good portion of the year. 5th in the league going tonight. That number will improve. I just didn't like the Lawrence goal given up by Riddick. I thought there were too many pucks early on in the game that he bobbled about, looked a little bit like a popcorn maker with a puck bouncing off his chest or one of his gloves. And that was how the first goal ended up going in the back of the net. And again, it's razor thin, the margin of error at this time of year. So all the combination of those things, power play, losing in the face-offs, not capitalizing on slot chances, and then one mistake by your goalie, and that's the end result is a loss.
Bart, you've seen this team for a little bit here, and I know for both you guys, there was a belief in this team, at least to the degree that I think both you thought that the Jets should have gone, if not all in, pretty darn close to all in. They shouldn't have left too many chips in front of them. Let's get into that conversation. We had this conversation a little bit before this. I on this program said I didn't think that they were going to be making many moves. I gave my reasons for thinking that they were going to do that. I think I'm right. I think I called it because I'm thinking the same thing that this team's management group is thinking, ownership group is thinking. I want to get your guys' thoughts on what you think, and we'll start with you, Bart. What do you think the danger has been in the Jets not having a stronger showing at the trade deadline?
Well, the biggest danger I see is look at both teams and how they like the deadline, how they've sort of gone all in. The way I see it sometimes is when you have a group, and you're in a market and you have a team and a fan base and a core group that you think this is the window to win, I think there's at some point you have to say, this is our core we're committed to, and you go all in and you take your shot. Because the worst thing that can happen is when you have a group and you never take that shot with them and the window closes and you move on and you go into a rebuild or the next stage and your fan base looks back and says, well, we had this great group, but we never really took a full shot at it, or we never had a full swing. And I wonder if that's the scenario for the Jets here. Not to say that they didn't try to make moves. I think the organization did try to make some moves, but when you have to look at the window you have players and who you have under contract, and necessarily play the guessing game of who's going to be here beyond their contracts or not. So you have to look at within the window of what you know with contracts. And when you look at this core for Winnipeg, obviously in the offseason they decided a coaching change was the move and not to blow up the core. So the commitment is there to the core. You're in on the pot. If this is a poker game, your chips are in the middle. And at what point do you say we've got to go all in? Because if you don't, you end up in this cycle of just never really getting there and kind of being in the middle and being mediocre as to where you make that move. I think that's probably the way a lot of Jets fans feel too. I think Niederreiter was a great addition. The Mesnikov is going to help, but I can't think that other Jets fans, seeing some of the players that did move around. Now, of course, you have no movement clauses that have to be, dealt with as well for certain players. But I think with all the action we saw in the East, if some fans felt like let's get a little more active with it, with how wide open it is, and they've got they've got one of the best goaltenders in the league, which can steal you games in the playoffs to make more of a push. I think that's probably where fans would see that, and you wonder too, what do the players think? I wonder what the players feel about this deadline. Do they feel that they were strong enough in the room with what they have? Do they feel that they would have liked a little more help? Do they feel cheated that they didn't get any help? I don't know. But you wonder, does that play a factor? And now, as Rick Bowness also said this morning, the deadline's over and this is it. This is the group. You move on. You can't think the ifs and buts now. The deadline has passed. This is a group you have to try and win with. So you move on. But that's the one thing I just, like Tampa's an example. You saw Julian Breezeball on the comments he made. They felt Tanner Jeannot was a player they needed to address an area that they want their core group for it. But I liked how he kind of said, all those picks are great, but those picks don't help us now. Our team and our core that we believe we can win with and have won with is here now. So we want a player that helps this group win now. And they're not worried about the picks later. You can move parts later on when it's time to disassemble and get some of those picks back. You don't hang draft picks in the rafters with banners. You hang Stanley Cups. And so I think that's sort of Tampa's approach. And I like that. As a fan, when you have your group and your core, Tampa's in their prime right now. Go for it. Win as much as you can with your prime, because it's so difficult to have a good core and have a shot at winning in this league every year. So when you have a group that you think you can win, you go for it. And I think that's probably how fans are feeling, when they kind of think that maybe the Jets, or not that they could have done more, would have liked to maybe seen more, and we're hoping for more out of it.
So, Sammy, I'm going to ask you the same thing, but I want to couch it by saying this. I'm a guy on this podcast. Kenny, I would argue, and I think he would admit, is usually the one who's a little bit more sunny on the disposition of the Winnipeg Jets. I'm a guy who likes at every point try and tell it like it is. And let's be honest, like last year, the Jets gave me reason to not talk very highly about them because they were a team that really couldn't seem to figure it out. This year, I mean, what I did say before the trade deadline, you guys heard this, but I'm just going to sum it up again for the fans, is I think that the Jets team itself robbed this management group of any faith in it. And considering the fact that there's potential to lose a lot of this core in the next year and a half, I think what happened was they forced the general manager and the management group into looking at this and saying, well, if we're going to lose them, is this core really worth investing in? And yes, I know I love the poker analogy, John. Putting some money in to the middle of the pot, you're going to lose it, right? You bet on it already. Why not go all in? But I'm going to tell you something like this. Is constantly calling me out. And every time that I kind of hold the Jets to account or really give it to them, he's really on me for this and saying that I've got bad takes for this. But if the fans who are true believers and have thought really highly of the Jets are saying, how much did I miss? I'm here to talk about what we can get for a trade with 55 this summer, tear this thing down. Like, this is what I'm saying is I'm showing you fans in the chat room here who are usually pretty sunny on the Winnipeg Jets. The fact that after a game like this, just that close to the trade deadline, fans that are typically pretty rosy are also saying, tear this down. How bad of a spot, Sam, do you think the Winnipeg Jets players put their general manager in if there was any chance that he wanted to go all in?
Well, I don't look at it that way. I know that's been your take.
Fair enough.
Saying the team didn't give them an opportunity as a general manager. You're trying to do the best thing for your hockey club and give your coach the best chance to win with the guys he has. Now, it was a successful season right up until this stretch now where they've lost 8 out of 10 games. But having said that, you saw the good for the better part of the season. So at that point, there's two things that I look at. I'm looking at a situation where in the West, things are really wide open. And now people are going to put Colorado at the forefront, especially if Landeskog ever comes back and Kucherovs himself into the playoffs. You're probably looking at that team as being the one team to beat. But the rest of it is really wide open. I mean, if I look at Vegas, do I have a faith in Jonathan Quick? If I look at LA, do I have faith in Korpisalo or Phoenix Copley? And if I look around the rest of the West, am I really that excited about what the other teams are bringing to the table? Not necessarily. Calgary's given me no reason all year. Edmonton is really good. I like the Oilers. I picked the Oilers to win the Cup at the start of the year. So now I'm looking at a situation in the West where you're like, all right, there's an opportunity here. Then you look at the core group that's signed. And so there is no doubt that Winnipeg has its challenges. There's no secret about that. There are players that have Winnipeg on a no-trade list, which I understand. The Jets have to do business a little bit differently. So if you're looking at getting a Timo Meier, the cost would have been prohibitive, knowing that A, you have to qualify him at $10 million, and B, the expectation of him signing long-term here was not likely to happen, even with the Nikolai Ehlers connection, going back to their days with the Halifax Mooseheads together. So that was probably not an area in which you could go to. The area that I would have tried to address is some additional scoring in the back end. And then the response would be, well, they're third in the league from defensive scoring, and that's based mostly on what Morrissey's done this year. Okay, same thing for San Jose, second in the league in defensive scoring, based mostly on what Karlsson has done this year. So I'm looking at a guy like Chychrun, and when I look at the end result, I think he was a gettable guy. I think Colton Parayko is another one of those guys. And now you have to think about narrowing maybe down your pool A to players from Western Canada, B, players who have term on their contract, and C, players who don't necessarily have control of where they're going. So again, you're limiting the number of options that you have. But I think an opportunity would have presented itself here to say, let's try and hit a home run. Is Chychrun a home run? No, but I think he's a triple. Is Parayko a home run? Well, if you look at the term left on his deal, yeah, then maybe so. So, I get it. But you're the general manager of the Winnipeg Jets. You play in Winnipeg. That's not going to change. You have to understand what the market bears around you, and you have to go and try and address things in that manner. Now, I'm not saying he didn't go after Parayko. I'm not saying he didn't go after Chychrun. But you also have to give up on a bit of your future. And every team is in love with its draft picks and in love with the draft picks upcoming. And I get it for 2023. Having said that, though, I'm like Bart's. I'm looking at this window with this group, the Wheelie, Scheifele, Morrison, Hellebuck, and you're thinking, what can I do to really add to this team, to put it over the top, to really be a competitor or give myself the best chance to win the West? And I think one of those two guys might have been the option to do it. Now, again, the cost might have been prohibitive. The players might have said no. There's a lot of factors that we just don't know on this side of the fence. But I would have liked to have seen a little bit more aggressive approach. And don't get me wrong, I love Vladdy and I really love Niederreiter, but a little bit more aggressive approach, maybe adding some a little bit more puck moving or whatever it is to the back end. I would have liked to have seen that here for the Jets, but I don't subscribe to the theory that the team not playing well over the stretch handcuffed Kevin Cheveldayoff into doing anything. I think it's more a traditional conservative approach by this organization, and that some of it is due to market constraints, and there's no way to get around that.
I'll tell you this: we invite people on the show, and they have the right to be wrong if they want to be wrong. So I'm not going to get in your way of that, Sammy. And you know what I'm not going to get in the way of is our main man Ken jumping into the show. He's finally ready to be here. Here comes Ken. Look at Kenny strolling in here all dapper, looking like $1 million. So much so that I had to take the overcoat off and show off my suit because you can't be trying to outdo me here, even though you do every night. And how do you do it? Well, of course, it's Vittorio Rossi, the boy, Frankie and the boys down Vittorio Rossi. If you want to look like Kenny and Renny, head on down to Corden Avenue, go see them, tell them Kenny and Renny sent you. Ask for the boys down there, and they will do you up right. You'll look like $1 million. Kenny, how are you doing on this evening?
Yeah, wonderful. Great soliloquy. I enjoyed. You know, you're out there telling people I wasn't ready to go. I'm just here sitting in the green room listening to some knowledge being dropped by our good friends from out of town. So
yeah,
had Sammy's here. Sammy's here, so I had to get the pocket square ready.
I'm here. There's no knowledge being dropped. Is that what you're suggesting?
Well, I'm suggesting that I'm glad you turned the microphone on tonight for the start of the show. That's what I'm suggesting.
That always works. Boys, you missed an epic episode
Absolute
of Kenny and Renny,
classic.
in which I talked for the first 5 minutes with my microphone off. That's why Ken is asked to come for a sound check before the show starts. He never usually does, but that's how it goes.
I texted him. I sent him a message in the chat here, and finally I called him 3 times before he finally picked up and then gave her one of these.
Ken, we got to get into this before we go over to Bart's mansion and
all right,
play us a song on the grand piano there. Let's start off. I want you to give me your lamplighter of the night, my friend.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to pick the Nate Schmidt goal as the lamplighter, more for the ability for Nate to come out of the press box back into the lineup. And this was one of those scenarios where, you don't know how a veteran player is going to respond. I mean, the early part of Nate's career when he was with the Washington Capitals, he was a healthy scratch on regular occasions, especially after trade deadlines when that team made additions for the likes of Tom Gilbert and a couple of other guys they brought in. Nate hadn't been scratched, at least not to my knowledge, as a healthy scratch. Sean, I don't know if you can remember any, but this is a guy who's been playing heavy minutes for the Jets since he was acquired in the trade from the Vancouver Canucks. I don't think there were any healthy scratches in Vegas. He was a humongous part of that defense core. So for me, I had a chance to briefly speak with Nate today away from the he was not brought to the backdrop. I just spoke with him about that and said, is this something where muscle memory comes in handy even though it's been a while? And he's like, yep. You consult the notes, you remember that you got to get back to doing the things that you do well, and hockey's a fickle game. One day you're on the top pairing, one day you're in the press box wondering when you're going to get back in. So, I mean, obviously, we won't know for sure because Rick wasn't ready to use that little bit of truth serum. He wouldn't say if Nate Schmidt would have been in the lineup had Kyle Capobianco been available and not been down with an illness, but Schmidt did a nice job of jumping in on a power play, found himself in the bumper position. Nikolai Ehlers with a great pass in front, and Nate Schmidt roofed his shot for what was the go-ahead goal and looked like the potential game winner until the Jets gave up that 6-on-5 goal with 10.5 seconds to go, and then the beautiful breakaway by Logan Couture through the 5-hole after a great pass by Erik Karlsson. So I'm choosing the Nate Schmidt, his 6th of the season at 14.53. Mambo number 5 blaring in the background as my lamplighter. There were several great options in the game, but I'm going with the Nate Schmidt special, even though, hat tip to Nino Niederreiter for his 200th, but Nate Schmidt doesn't score quite as often, and he's getting the nod today thanks to our good folks at Trans-Canada Brewing Company.
Ken, I love to argue with you, but not even I can argue with your take on that. I absolutely agree with you 100%. That would be my lamplighter as well. And hey, all you out there watching, you should share with us your lamplighter, your goal of the game. If you do so, you'll automatically be entered to win a Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Ale from our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. If you can't wait for Kenny and Renny to send you your 8-pack, well, why don't you do what Sammy and Bart's did and go out and buy some on your own? Or you could head on down to Trans-Canada Brewing Company, join them in their tap room at 11290 Kenniston. Hey, they've got the best pizza you're going to try in this city. Tons of different beers. We really got to get Sammy and John down there, Kenny. We're derelict of duty for not getting them down there. We love to take and spoil everybody that we bring into town. We haven't done that yet. We got to get to that. Let's do that. And let's try and spoil someone else here right now before I give a pitch for our show on the 18th there, Ken. Let's spoil Ryan Closes, I think is the pronunciation of the name, because Ryan Closes is the winner of the Frosty Delicious Lamplighter pack, 8-pack. From our last show. So you know what to do, Ryan. Just direct message me at SN Sean Reynolds. Make sure you give me your full name and an email, and I will send you a voucher for your Frosty Delicious 8-pack of Lamplighter Amber Ale brought to you by our friends at Trans-Canada Brewing Company. Congratulations. You are on the clock. Need to get that in before next Thursday. Okay, let's move it along here. Guys, we do something called the Johnston Group Got You Covered Award of the game. It's basically, either a big hit, a fight, a blocked shot, something like that along those lines, something that screams got you covered. You can go on either team for this. To either you, Sammy, John, jump in. Is there anything that stands out to you as someone having someone covered on the ice out there tonight?
I'm thinking about Brendan Dillon and a couple of big hits. Early in the game, McDonald, maybe a little high. McDonald didn't return. And then one later, and I want to say, I can't remember who it was on later in the game.
Noah Gregor, or no? Was it
was on Gregor, I think. Yeah, you might be right. Yeah. But, I love the way he plays. Part of the Killer D's back there with DeMello. I thought Dillon was really assertive today. Up ice, good gap, breaking up plays. I appreciated the way he went after his business tonight. He plays aggressively. I think he was up in the play a little bit more than I can remember going back to last year. That's probably a product of, Rick Bowness wanting to get his defense more involved and giving him license to do so. But I was appreciative of number 5's game tonight.
Anything for you, Bertz?
I'm going to go with the San Jose Sharks penalty kill tonight, which was perfect, including that mad scramble at the end of the second period where they were the Jets were on that power play at the end of the second, and they had the whole bunch of chances, had them hemmed in. They were gassed. They were exhausted, blocking shots. Nico Sturm, I think, was one that took the biggest block, and he was sprawled out on the ice there afterwards, just completely gassed. But I think as a group, the Sharks penalty killers tonight certainly had San Jose and the Jets power play covered pretty well.
Yeah, holy smokes, what an aggressive power play. I mean, the way that they send their players up high on the player and kind of try and force them down low, it's a really well thought out power play, and I think a pretty good example of good coaching that despite the fact that you've got a young team that's extremely inexperienced, I feel like Quinn went out there and decided, I'm going to just take one thing and really work at it with these guys, and this is going to be my way of coaching this team into the future, is we're going to pick one thing, we're going to try and get really good at it, we're going to focus the hell out of it, and because we're not that good of a team, we're going to be taking a lot of penalties over the years. So if we can get good at this one thing that we'll be practicing quite a bit, I think it bodes well for the future in coaching these guys and showing them with some work and some effort, some good coaching and some video work put in, we can be really good at some things. I know we're not a good team right now, but if we dive into this and show ourselves we can be good, I think it's a real confidence builder for the next season. Kenny, are you on board with that?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm just going to go 2 specific plays, and I would have loved to have heard Bart's calls on them. The one-timer from Saku Menelainen to Morgan Barron for the glove save, sprawled out along the bottom of the crease, and then the absolutely ridiculous bicycle kick right skate save on Barron when he cut to the net on that shorthanded chance. Sharks penalty killer, best penalty killer was James Reimer, and 2 of his 36 saves were absolute highlight reel 10 bellers, and that is what I am choosing, the Morrowina product for the We've Got You Covered play of the game, brought to you by the OGs, the good folks from the Johnston Group.
Great selection by all, and you know about the Johnston Group. You won't find 2 businesses with the same challenges, but you will find 30,000 businesses with Chambers Plan. Employee benefits proudly administered by our friends at Johnston Group. Chambers Plan is Canada's #1 plan for employee benefits because it evolves with the way you work and live. The plan is run as a not-for-profit designed specifically to support small businesses, and its unique pooling strategy keeps rates stable so you won't have any surprises at your next renewal. Chambers Plan now comes with professional consulting on key financial, legal, and HR issues, and teledoc telemedicine services are included with every health option. See how Chambers Plan can benefit your business by visiting chamberplan.ca. Gentlemen, I wanted to take this in a more fun direction when it comes to debate, but if we want to have some fun, sometimes you need some good music to have some fun, and you need Renny making a little bit of an ass out of himself to have some fun. So let's do it. Let's make this a Sean's Headband version of the Kenny and Renny Show. Let's hit it. Gentlemen, I don't know about everybody else, and I actually don't think it plays very much into the way the voters attack these things, but I love head-to-head matches when you know that it's going to happen between, 2 players who are heading towards the same goal. So because of that, I love the idea that we're going to see in these last 19 games for the Winnipeg Jets, 3 times they're going to go up against the San Jose Sharks. So we get a real good look at what Josh Morrissey does for the Winnipeg Jets as a defenseman, and what Erik Karlsson does for the San Jose Sharks as a defenseman. I was looking at this game earlier tonight and thought that this was a runaway example of why Josh Morrissey would be the guy that a lot of people would have on their ballot as the defenseman of the year in the NHL. And then all of a sudden, Erik Karlsson came out at the end of the game and stole the spotlight with 2 points with almost no time left on the clock. And all of a sudden, he's showing you what makes him special. I want to start with you, Bartz. What did you see from these 2 players tonight, and where do you stand in this debate?
I like Morrissey's game tonight. Karlsson had a pretty good game. I don't think he was it was a quieter game for him. I'll put it that way. Not in a bad way. I mean, he logged a ton of ice time, and but Morrissey was probably more productivity tonight out of the 2 defensemen when they get a chance to go head-to-head like that. So, Karlsson's having a heck of a season, and I think he's in a situation here to really maybe a record-breaking kind of year when it's all said and done. I don't know how much Karlsson's affected by maybe staying in San Jose after the trade deadline too. Now that he's got beyond that, there was a lot of speculation. Would he go? Would he go? Now that he knows he's staying there for the rest of the year, you can kind of settle in and get away from that. Morrissey, obviously, he's going to be a big part of this Jets stretch drive here. So, but I liked Morrissey's game tonight with the way he was trying to get some pucks through to the net and create some offense.
Sammy, take a swing at it.
Sick headband right there.
A lot of accessories on this show all of a sudden.
We gotta go scarf. We gotta go hair. We gotta go piano.
Yeah.
Bart, what's the butler doing right now, Bart? He's probably buying Erik Karlsson a drink. But well, listen. At the end of the day, where Karlsson is, that only 5 defensemen in the game have had 100-point seasons is truly amazing. There's no doubt now his singular focus is going to be being the 6th guy to do that. Coming into tonight was on a 104-point pace. His 2 points today surely helped him towards that. And I think in his situation, there was a couple of times tonight, like the one Morgan Barron breakaway from the top of the circle in. He was on that PK and was like, he was just done. He just said, "Here we go, have it. Thank God you missed it." Off he went. It was one of those things. But I think when you're a guy who makes that kind of money, who's had the kind of year he's had, on the team that he's on, that's a pretty difficult contract to move. When you're talking about the money, like nobody has money, nobody in a position to acquire Karlsson to push them over the edge had the money to do it, and there was no way San Jose is going to eat 40% of it. So, good job on Mike Greer for just standing pat and waiting until the summer of the draft to be able to exact the price needed to get him, which should help the rebuild. And you think if you can wipe off even $9 million of that money, you're talking about two good players that can fit into the middle of your lineup, and potentially a goalie if they don't like their goalie situation moving forward. So getting back to Karlsson, I think he's on the quest for 100. I think he'll get there because I think he'll extend himself like he did on several occasions tonight in order to get to that point. And, through 58 minutes, basically, he didn't have a point. And then he ends up with 2. So, good on him. But in Morrissey, I had a good chat with him this morning, and we just got talking about, like, the game that I recognized him that he played in PA and later in Kelowna was the game that I'm now seeing out of him. And he mentioned, when I came up, we had Trouba, we had Buff, those guys were carrying the mail offensively. So I really just worked on my defensive game, and I played a very safe game, and that was accepted by the coaching staff. And I never really got out of that until this year when I was approached about maybe doing more. And of course, he's taken that upon himself, and he defends well. He uses his feet. He's such a smart player. He's such a great skater, and his ability to play in the power play and produce points is pretty awesome. So, anyways, a cool matchup to see the top 2 D scores in the league go head to head, and pretty cool to see Erik Karlsson doing his thing again after a couple of years where he looked like a shadow of himself. But it's 100 points from a D-man. I admit I don't mind seeing that. I just wish he had started his quest a night later.
Yeah, Kenny, what's your take?
Yeah, it's super interesting. I thought that Erik was not very noticeable for a good chunk of the game, and then you look up and he's in on the 2 biggest goals of the night. And the other part that you kind of lose track of during the game, when I say I didn't think he was active, I just didn't see him activating as often.
Yeah.
Yet there he is. There he is with 3 shots and 13 shot attempts, and 13 shot attempts. How could he have not been involved in the game, right? I mean, of course he's involved in the game, but I expected him to be. I mean, he's always been a little bit more of an explosive skater. I agree. I'm going to take it even a step further, Bartz. I thought that he looked like a guy that had checked out of the game, knowing that he hadn't been traded to a contender on a lot of his shifts out there. I'm not just saying defensively, but he's also a guy that is so smart, right? I mean, so that's the other part of it. I mean, of course, he gets lucky on the game-tying goal that it goes off the stick of Blake Wheeler, but perfect feed. They catch Mark Scheifele on a 1:15 shift in overtime, and Karlsson whips the puck perfectly and feeds Couture for an easy breakaway, and a great move there. So for me, I think Karlsson. I do have a vote, and I understand some folks are upset about the points element, but I mean, for me, if he's 25 points ahead of the next guy clear, I'm sorry, but you can be let off the hook to a degree for the fact he isn't as good a defensive player. Now, I obviously take into consideration the defensive play, and Josh Morrissey is clearly a better defensive player, and I think that Josh has, closed the gap in a lot of regards. Rasmus Dahlin is still in the discussion. Adam Fox would still be in this discussion as well. And Adam Fox is a guy who I didn't care for the way he defended earlier in his career, but he's improved his defensive play. So I think he's obviously in consideration also. But I mean, the fact that, Karlsson just has so many points, I think it has to, I think it still leaves him in the first place spot. There's still almost 20 games left, quarter of a season. If he checks out, he could still conceivably be passed in the race. But for me right now, it's Karlsson 1 and Morrissey 2. And like I said, I think Adam Fox and Rasmus Dahlin are kind of neck and neck for 3 and 4.
So here's the background, gentlemen. There's a running debate on the show between Ken and myself. I think that Josh Morrissey is the Jets MVP. Ken thinks that Connor Hellebuck is the Jets MVP.
It's close, but
everyone's got their right to be wrong.
We'll find out in the last 20 games. We'll find out, buddy. We'll find out.
Ken is punishing Josh Morrissey right now.
Stop it. Just
because
stop
Josh
it.
Morrissey is going to prove me right by the time this is all said and done.
I'll be thrilled for you
thing,
if that's the case.
One thing Ken and I have also debated quite a bit is I've been very loud on this. I think Connor Hellebuck has been getting jobbed time and time again, year after year, by the people who vote on that award. He's the best player in the NHL. He has been for a long time, and I think the writers keep going out time and time again.
Sorry, say McDavid. Say McDavid. You said Hellebuck.
Sorry, McDavid, and been trying. I think writers have been trying to find reasons not to give him the award for years, and they've been succeeding. I've got a big problem with it. So what did Connor McDavid do this year? He got absolutely sick and tired of it. And he's like, okay, I can go and I can run up the points race and I can do all this kind of stuff and I can show what I did in the playoffs and show just how important I am to this team. It still isn't enough because then someone's going to debate, well, goals are harder to score than points are to score, so this guy's going to get the MVP award. So what does he do this year? He goes out and he's like, fine, I'll just do it all. I'll score more goals than everyone else in the league. I'll get more points. I'll get more assists. I'll do it all. I'll do everything so that they have to give me the award. This, to me, is Erik Karlsson's version of that. He's going out right now and he's saying, I know there's going to be a whole bunch of people out there who will try and take this award away from me because I'm not on a very good team. And people will say, well, he can't be the best defenseman because his team's not very good. I hate those kind of arguments. I absolutely despise them. I hate putting a player in a situation where they can have just a ludicrous season and not win it because of the situation they're in. So that being said, I take a look at what Erik Karlsson is doing. There has to be something put in this. This isn't like Teemu Selanne going down the ice and scoring over and over again and Phil Housley getting a whole bunch of points because he's just lobbing the puck to Teemu Selanne. This is a guy on a team bereft of talent for the most part, who's going out and doing something that hasn't been done in 3 decades on a team where it's easy to focus in on him. For all those reasons, I think that it's going to be very hard to take that away from Erik Karlsson. But at the same time, and you guys touched on it, that play where Morgan Barron goes in, Erik Karlsson gives up on that play. I don't care how tired he was. Erik Karlsson, you can see it in his posture and his body language, was like, yeah, you know what? Just take it. Go in. I don't care. Go after it. And I've got a massive problem with that because Josh Morrissey, yes, he's, 16 points behind Erik Karlsson. What Josh is doing is amazing here as well, but Josh would never do that. And one of the things we talked about, Sammy, we talked about it with David Quinn before the game, when he talked about his stars that were left behind after the big sell-off. One of the things he said, like in everything, their leadership needs to be there, not just in how they play, not just in how they talk in the dressing room, but in their body posture.
Yeah.
And the body posture I saw from Erik Karlsson tonight was the weakest body posture I've seen of any player in the NHL that I've seen live this year. That was ridiculous. And I just thought to myself, while this shouldn't be, if he hits 100 points, if he goes over 100 points, this should not be a question of who should be named the defenseman of the year. And now I feel like I'm acting like those writers who are always looking for an excuse not to give it to Connor McDavid. But that was putrid. What I saw from him tonight in letting Morgan Barron skate by him and just saying, take it. I don't know if this is the first time he's done this or if he's done this 17 or 19 or 29 times throughout this season. But a player giving up on a play like that, I've got a massive problem with. And I think even on a night where he outpoints Josh Morrissey and his team wins and he factors in on the tying and the game-winning goal, Erik Karlsson is showing me a big reason not to give him that award on a night like tonight. Am I crazy to say that?
No, but you're crazy to forget the fact that one of the years McDavid didn't get votes, he was the second best player on his own team, and his name was Leon Draisaitl, was the best player. So in the other year, they missed the playoffs by 30 points. Sorry, I'm exaggerating,
shouldn't
but
matter. Anyway, okay, let's move
he's got
on.
two. He's got two MVPs, and he's going to get a third this year. And he's on a good team this year, which makes what he's doing even more impressive.
When you're talking about that play with Barron, you're right.
End of a long shift, too.
He just threw his hands up and was like, "Yeah, have at it. Good luck, buddy." I thought the body language could have been better, and he could have disguised it that there was more effort there or that he was tired. But you're right. I didn't appreciate that.
No, me either.
And at the end of the day, he's 2 assists, game winner. See ya. We're going home. I got 2 more points.
Yeah, no doubt. Okay, Ken, before we move on, give our main man, Sweet Lou, a shout out.
Yeah, for the folks who require some or have some realty needs that are required, you can contact our main man, Lou Furlan, at Royal LePage Dynamic Realty, 204-791-9971, or at the office, 204-989-5000. His email is lou@loufurlan.ca. That's LOU@LOUFURLAN.ca. And his website with all the listings, www.loufurlan.ca. Lou Furlan, excellent realtor, excellent human being, and excellent supporter of the community, including this program, for which we are extremely thankful.
Come on, Lou. Get her done.
Sweet Lou, he's the main man. Okay, I got to bring this into this conversation here because I know that some people are upset about this. It's shown up time and time again. Blake Wheeler, a lot of people are talking about him. Tim Gertzen says this. 4 guys talking about this game and none are concerned about who Bowness chooses to defend the lead at the end. So let's get into this a little bit. I will say this, and you guys can vouch for this. When people come into town and they ask me about Blake Wheeler, one of the things I'll say is if Blake Wheeler is taking a sticking penalty on that night, dollars to donuts, Blake Wheeler is not skating very well that night. I find he reaches a lot when he's behind the play. It's a surefire example of being like that. It happened again here tonight. I'll say this, Blake Wheeler is putting up points, and for a lot of people, that's enough. So many of those points happen to be the second assist on power plays. I guess tonight's wasn't technically a power play goal, but it was shortly afterwards. But second assist where he's essentially giving the puck to a player who makes the play and then the person puts it in the back of the net. I don't want to take anything away from it, but I think we've been looking at it lately. Blake Wheeler looks to me like a guy who is not at the top of his game. He looks tired on a lot of nights. If he doesn't look tired, he looks like he's a little bit behind the play. We're all sitting here talking about Nick Ehlers and trying to figure out what's going on here. Rick Bowness is talking at the end of this game and says Pierre-Luc Dubois kind of wasn't getting what they needed, or that line wasn't. But I wonder when you're a player like Nick Ehlers and your game is being lightning out on the ice, when you're playing with a player in his mid-30s like Blake Wheeler, who's playing a different style of game. Ken, where do you see Blake Wheeler's game being at this moment? And do you think it was a bad move to have him out on the ice on a night where, by my theory, he's taking stick penalties and he looked a little bit behind the play? If he's behind the play, why is that guy out protecting the lead?
Blake's going through a tough time right now. There's no doubt about that. The legs are not there. The effort is, he's trying to get there, but right now Blake is the battle with Father Time. Blake has won the battle with Father Time for the majority of those previous 35 years. Right now, he has him in a pretty hard armbar right now. Right now, Father Time has with Wheeler. Blake came back from the gruesome injury that required surgery and actually had some pretty good jump. I thought he came out of the All-Star break with a little bit of jump, but right now he's not skating well. There's no doubt about that. I would have to say that I didn't like the fact that I think this is twofold. I didn't like the fact that he went for the empty netter, but he only went for the empty netter because he was gassed and he wasn't sure he could get to the bench. So when he missed the net, it was duly punitive because it caused another face-off, and the Jets got crushed in the face-off circle. And Rick Bowness, Adam Lowry is their best guy. Tonight he was not. He was 31%. Pierre-Luc Dubois was out as a second centerman. I don't think that Pierre-Luc Dubois had great legs tonight either in a lot of fronts, but he had 20 minutes. They need to get him back going. But he was even worse in the circle at 22%. So some people will say that this is, looking back with rose-colored glasses, but Rick Bowness has punched hit a lot of the right notes this year. Sean, we were talking about this at the morning skate. Last game, David Gustafsson 6 of 7 in the circle. Today they could have used a guy who's, and I understand also, small sample size, and Gustafsson over the course of the season, part of the reason he lost his job to Kevin Stenlund was because he wasn't winning enough faceoffs. But you have seen Gustafsson play a strong couple of games since being back, and he was awesome in the dot. So that would have been a chance where maybe you give Gustafsson a secondary chance there, but you can't do that if he's not in the lineup. And that's not why the Jets lost the extra point. I'm just saying that was one of the tools that he could have had in his arsenal, and that tool was unavailable because Kevin Stenlund, even though Sean, this is classic bonus. Like, you've made this point all year long. Sometimes he doesn't want to take a guy out after a bad game, because Rick Bowness was quite adamant in thinking Stenlund wasn't very good on Saturday night, but he gave him an extra chance to go in. And none of the faceoffs were on his strong side, so he wouldn't have been out there to take the draws anyway. But, I mean, I think that was one of the factors. Who would you have had out there? I mean, Morgan Barron's one of their better defensive players, but he's a young guy still trying to find his way in the NHL. Saku Menelainen's a guy that's been out in those scenarios during the course of the year. Big, strong guy, good along the boards. That would have been another option for the Jets, but I mean, it started, they had an offensive zone draw, and they had Scheifele, Connor, and Niederreiter on the ice at that situation. So for me, I would have liked to have seen Niederreiter out there. But again, the usage, I mean, even though no one's complaining about it, I mean, did anyone say that was the right trio? I mean, I thought Lowry was obviously going to be out there because he's their most consistent guy in the circle. But, I mean, Wheeler had an up and down game, and, didn't have his legs. So, I mean, it's tough to ask a guy to be out there when you're chasing in a 6-on-5 scenario. So that's not, no one here is saying it's Wheeler's fault that the Jets lost or gave up the tying goal either. But I don't know that was was that the optimal 3 guys forwards to have out on the ice? I think Dubois is a guy they normally would be having on the ice there. And Blake is often a reliable defensive player, but in this situation, a soft chip off the boards instead of going for the empty net would have been the right play, right? And that's something that Blake knows that. I don't think he was being selfish trying to get points. He was trying to end the game because he was gassed.
Yeah. I will say this. I think one of the reasons why Rick Bowness had him out there, Blake Wheeler, if you take a look at the numbers, is one of the most successful players in the history of the NHL with the empty net. He's a closer, right? So this is the only thing I can think about Rick Bowness and why he goes in this direction. When Blake Wheeler's out there, the puck is very likely to end up on the other team's net, in the other team's net. But at the same time, I take a look at what's happening. I take a look at a night like tonight, where to me it felt like he was a step behind the play at many times during that game. There's just too many options at this stage. They just brought in 2 of them at the trade deadline, players that could go out and play in that situation. Of course, Adam Lowry can, Morgan Barron can, Saku Menelainen can.
Nemesnikov, I should have mentioned also. I mean, the other day he was out on the ice in that scenario, but tonight he only had 9:31. You play that first game on adrenaline, and maybe he didn't have as much jump today, but that's the situation you brought the guy in for, right, Sean? I mean, that's
exactly. And I think it's, I mean, the other part about this is it seems like Kyle Connor gets out there. Actually, Kyle Connor's numbers, percentage-wise, the percentage of his points produced in his career are higher than that of Blake Wheeler's. And both those players are top 10 in the history of the NHL for players whose points, the highest percentage of their points, come from the empty net. So these are 2 players that know how to put the puck into the empty net, no doubt. But I'll be honest, it's baffled me throughout the year that a guy like Kyle Connor seems to get on for the second shift when the team trying to score is a little bit more tired and they put him out there. But Blake Wheeler seems to get on there and is the first option time and time again. It does seem strange to me for a guy like that. Hey, Ken, if he's gassed, wouldn't his age have something to do with that? I mean, wouldn't the fact that, he's out there trying to fight and he's 36 years old compared to a Saku Menelainen put him in a different situation? I get that he was trying to finish the game because he was tired, but that's a problem, right? A tired player has to find in that moment the ability to flip the puck in the air and find a way to get off the ice. It's a mistake that led to the game-winning goal. This is a scenario where having Blake Wheeler on with the empty net cost the Winnipeg Jets. It should at the very least be reviewed by this coaching staff. With all the assets they have that could have been playing in that situation, it should at the very least be reviewed on how they want to go use this going forward and whether they maybe like a different set of players out there. Guys, I don't know if you want to jump in on this. If you don't, we're going to close this thing down. Anything you have to say on that matter?
Well, don't you think you got a veteran guy who's got size, who can get in the way, who's got a good stick? who can be strong enough to pin guys against the wall. And I mean, I don't know. It's not the worst situation to put a guy in. And the other part of it is, I do like, depending on what your the rest of your group is, like the empty net situations and guys getting points in the empty net. It's not to be discounted. Like that's an important role to play, because you can close games out that way, right? And so think of all the times that Blake Wheeler's been able to close out a game where you increase that lead to 2 or 3, depending on how late in the game and how much you're up. Has been an important situation in closing out games. The other part of that is you're not expected at that point to run the length of the ice. You're expected to really just kind of play your one zone defense. And so you should be able to have enough energy to be able to do all that. So I don't have a huge problem with him being out there at that time, knowing all of those things and surrounding him with personnel that might be a little bit more adept defensively. But I do agree with the assessment that at that point in the game, with where he was trying to score from there, I would have liked the high glass or chip and then maybe get off the ice.
No doubt. John, we good? We good, John?
With the face-off situation, Stenlund is the only player on the team that's got over 50% of the face-offs win percentage this year. And I think he won one draw tonight. I think he ended with 14%. So even your best guy, technically by the numbers, had a tough night against the Sharks. So you win that draw, there's never a discussion. Wheeler trying for the empty net. Coaches like that nowadays too. He was gassed trying to get it down the ice, and you can't get the timeout or the change after the icing, so they're kind of stuck in that way. But it just goes back to getting beat in the face circle tonight. When draw, that becomes a concern anyway. So.
All right. Okay. It was time for us to shut things down here. It is also time for us to throw a spotlight on the comments and choose a standout for the Home Field Dig Deeper Award tonight. That is going to go to Brass Balls Blake. Check it out. For a team that kills penalties so well, they should be better handling 6-on-5 situations. This is an insightful comment because of exactly what we were just talking about. There are so many different players that the Jets could use in this situation. And it is crazy to see. What was it? One of you guys, it was either Sam or Bart's had this stat. I think the Jets right now are second in the NHL, the second best penalty kill on the entire season in the NHL. And yet somehow they keep giving up goals 6-on-5. It doesn't seem like it should be happening, but it is. That's just the way things go. Got to give a shout out. Thanks to Brass Balls Blake for your winning comment. And just like Brass Balls Blake, Home Field is always going to dig deeper to find the best marketing solution for your company. Find out how at myhomefield.ca. And Brass Balls Blake, you know what to do. Send me your name and your email. Direct message it to me at SNSeanReynolds, and I will send you your voucher for your very own Home Field / Kenny and Renny trunk shovel, so you can keep digging deeper the way you did here tonight. Sammy, Bart's, awesome job. We love it that you guys not only kicked ass on the broadcast, but you showed up on Kenny and Renny after. You guys have always been such big supporters of us. It means the world to us. Thank you for that. Kenny, you did a great job. Chat room, you rocked it as you usually do, and I'll end this the way I always end it by saying, if you appreciate the conversations that are happening in these spaces, if you appreciate the big boys like Sam and Bart showing up, please appreciate our sponsors who keep these conversations going in these spaces for us. That's Vittorio Rossi, TransCanada Brewing Company, the Johnston Group, Lou Ferland, and Home Field. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll do it all over again. Bart's is going to be there to call the game. Jammer Jamal Myers is going to come in for Sam, who's going to head back to the studio and look dapper like he always does, although we'll have to admire it from afar in Toronto. One of these days, you're going to have to put the scarf on the desk there, Sam, just so that your fans here in Winnipeg get a huge kick out of it. Thanks, gentlemen, so much. We'll reconvene and do it all again next Wednesday. Huge game this Wednesday, as the Winnipeg Jets play a huge game against the Minnesota Wild. See you after that, everybody. Have a good one.
The Kenny and Renny Show is brought to you by Home Field, Cambrian Credit Union, Lou Ferland, TransCanada Brewing, Vittorio Rossi, and Johnston Group.